Today, I'm going to talk about why I was banned. On June 4th, 2019, I was suddenly completely banned from the internet. Of course, saying completely banned might not be entirely accurate, because at that time, my accounts on 3 platforms were simultaneously taken down. One is Sina Weibo, another is Toutiao, and the other is WeChat official account. Of course, these 3 platforms are particularly important. Some other smaller platforms are not as important. So when I was first banned, it wasn't the so-called complete internet ban. These 3 most important platforms were banned. This date, I remember it very clearly even now because it was June 4th. And on that same day, I was banned. After I was banned, a rumor quickly started spreading on Sina Weibo, saying that I was banned because I participated in a June 4th gathering in the United States. At that time, I had actually already returned from the United States. In June 2019, I went to the United States to discuss with an American lawyer about suing Fang Zhuzi in the United States. I returned to China on June 3rd, so it is clearly a lie, just a rumor. As a person who often goes out because I work as an investigative journalist, my exact travel plans are not usually reflected on my public platforms. I don't let others know my precise travel information. However, I have a plane ticket to prove that I returned on June 3rd. So when the rumor came out, I posted a statement on Twitter, because my Sina Weibo had already blown up, and I couldn't post a statement there. I clarified that I had returned to China on June 3rd. Spreading rumors that I was in the United States to attend a June 4th gathering, I'm reserving the right to take legal action against this. These 2 pieces of information are attached together. Actually, this whole thing feels like a conspiracy. On June 4th, my accounts were all blown up, and right after that, rumors started spreading online that I was in the United States participating in a June 4th event. You can imagine. Because I've been working in journalism for many years, and I also worked at CCTV for many years in the past. I also know what can and cannot be done within the domestic system, because I need to conduct interviews in the country. Normally, while working domestically, how could I possibly go to the United States to attend a June 4th gathering? There's absolutely no chance. But who exactly started spreading such information online? So, it's easy for people to think that those who wanted to take me down chose to do it on June 4th. By banning me on this day, they attached a certain political symbol to the act. This means that the people targeting me want to ensure that I can never recover. Everyone knows that the June 4th incident is an extremely sensitive date, an event within the country. If you get involved with this matter, you can never be vindicated. So, if those who wanted to take me down deliberately chose the date of June 4th to do so, it is very likely that they did it with meticulous planning. That means they wanted to ensure I could never recover. Of course, at that time, after the ban, the losses for me were extremely, extremely significant. The first loss is that a lot of articles on my WeChat official account and Sina Weibo were lost. Besides conducting interviews, I also write some articles. And these articles were published on my WeChat official account and included in my Toutiao articles. Once they were taken down, there was no way to retrieve these articles. However, my articles are not fully saved on my various scattered computers. If I want to find my articles, the most complete versions are actually on my WeChat official account and my Sina Weibo Toutiao articles. But once it was all blown up, everything was gone. At that time, many publishers were reaching out to me to discuss book publishing deals, and with these articles gone, they couldn't be found anymore. For those of us who write, losing our written work is like losing our own children. This feeling is something many people can understand. More importantly, at that time our program was in the middle of discussing the contract for the 2nd season with the platform. However, as soon as my account got banned, the platform immediately didn't dare to continue the contract negotiations. With me, originally our situation with the broadcast of the first 2 seasons had a very, very significant impact on the market. At its peak, our program had 200 to 300 million views per episode. For example, our coverage of the Jiang Ge case. And the Zhou Libo gun incident, St. Joe's, was seen by almost everyone with a smartphone, both Chinese people at home and abroad. When I went to Australia to see the penguins The penguins were on a very, very remote island. At that time, we were driving from Mormon, and it was a long drive. I remember taking a break and going to a supermarket to use the restroom. When the people in the supermarket saw me, they said, "Oh, Director Wang is here. I've watched your show." Joe Lebo, this shows the influence of our program back then. It wasn't just in our country. It had a huge impact among Chinese people worldwide. So we have very high expectations for the new season situation at that time. Many platforms were competing to reach out to me. Besides broadcasting on this main platform, another platform offered to rebroadcast the show, promising to pay me several million a year. But because of this, all my work stopped immediately, as soon as the account was blocked. No platform dared to talk to me anymore. Actually, as a journalist, especially with our program being broadcast on internet platforms, the loss of an account for me is incomparable to that of an ordinary person. For example, if a doctor loses an account, his loss is merely the opportunity to speak on a public platform. But for me, it meant the end of my career. Think about it. If a doctor loses their account, it's not a big deal. They just stop posting on social media, but they can still perform surgeries and take care of patients. But for me, losing my account means losing my job. And it's not just my current job that's gone. It also means I can't do any other work related to my previous job. Because all your social media accounts are gone, it's impossible to continue broadcasting my program on this social media account or on any other social platform. You can imagine, for me, this is almost like a declaration of social death. So at that time, I was really anxious and quickly reached out to some friends to ask, trying to figure out what the reason was. Who exactly wanted to target me? So after the first round of questions, a friend went to ask and found out that this matter was initiated by the Social Affairs Bureau of the Cyberspace Administration of China. The directive signed by the director of the Cyberspace Administration of China was sent to the Emergency Management Bureau and distributed to all major platforms, resulting in my ban. But if people don't know the specific reason, do we still need to keep asking around? Of course, because we are making a program, and over the years we have made some friends. Many people, seeing my current situation, were very anxious and took the initiative to help me ask around. So, what happened after that? The first wave of feedback indicated that the reason was your account had too much influence. The context at that time was that the Cyberspace Administration was conducting a rectification campaign. The core idea of this campaign was that internet platforms were not allowed to have those, how should I put it, those who were not one of their own. The existence of accounts with particularly large influence, because everyone knows that, for a period of time, accounts like People's Daily, China, Central Television, Xinhua Net, and Xinhua News Agency did not have a very large influence online, at least not compared to people like us. Their influence was actually not particularly significant. This created a situation that, in the eyes of the relevant departments, was problematic. When a piece of social news breaks, the articles and reports posted by these so-called accounts don't have as much influence as a few posts we make. The result of that is when they want to convey their message, it gets affected. But for us, when we voice something, it can directly cause a significant public reaction. The person who provided us with feedback said that this was not permissible in the eyes of the relevant authorities. So, how influential was my account at that time? Back then, Sina Weibo categorized bloggers into different fields, such as popular science, food, military, and so on. I belong to the social news category. My account has consistently ranked number 1 in social news nationwide for many years. The monthly views are in the hundreds of millions, and at its peak, it even reached over 1 billion views, which indeed has a very significant impact. But do you think having a large influence is a crime? Right. From my perspective, because I used to work at CCTV, I have always been quite cautious and low-key when speaking on Sina Weibo. Moreover, from my own perspective, I don't think I said anything too outrageous. Because I'm not usually an extremely radical person. The philosophy I adhere to is also that of a moderate and constructive image. If you asked me to say something particularly extreme, I probably wouldn't be able to, including the programs I produce myself. I repeatedly tell my own team members that after leaving CCTV, what can protect us, there is only one thing, and that is professionalism. Our programs must not have any professional flaws that people can point out, because if there are professional flaws, who can protect you in the future? No one can protect you. However, besides being a host for an interview journalist, I also post on Sina Weibo, and I guess you could say I'm an opinion leader. When it comes to some social hot topics, sometimes I can't help but express my own views. I do think this is indeed my own issue, because the people in our team, the Jumian team, keep telling me, "Mr. Wang, you should post less on Weibo, you know? Posting on Weibo is too risky. We get really nervous after reading your posts." But from my perspective, I didn't post anything particularly offensive. Yet even so, it was still not tolerated. This is the first feedback. As for the second one, another group of people was invited and some others were asked. The feedback from this group was somewhat different from the previous one, they said. He said that your entry ban was because the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration sent a document to the Cyberspace Administration of China requesting to ban you. It's because the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration has a personal grudge against you. Everyone knows that I have been very outspoken online against traditional Chinese medicine, especially Chinese medicine injections. For instance, during the Hongmao medicinal liquor incident, right? Tan Jingdong was targeted just for writing a popular science article. The police in Inner Mongolia detained him for over 90 days. After we finished the interview, the Ministry of Public Security sent a notice to the Beijing News requesting that the program be taken down. As a result, our program was removed within 48 hours. But at that time, we all felt that this Hongmao medicinal liquor situation was just outrageous, right? I couldn't control myself, so I started writing articles online, continuing to criticize Hongmao medicinal liquor by pointing out some technical issues. For example, with Hongmao medicinal liquor, in his formula, he claims to have the bones of a leopard. But we all know that leopards are classified as first and second class protected animals in our country, rare animals. How could you possibly use the bones of rare animals in medicine? Right. Where did you get these bones? If you have them, then you are illegally using the bones of a first-class protected animal. Right. This is clearly prohibited by the wildlife protection law. If you don't have it, then you're deceiving consumers. Your wine clearly doesn't contain popcorn, but you still claim that your formula includes popcorn. Isn't that fraud? We continued to pursue this matter through these channels, and at that time, Hongmao medicinal liquor indeed created a wave of public opinion online. I was the one pushing this issue, and many people, including some media outlets, followed up. Hongmao medicinal liquor was indeed very anxious at that time, so they hired a PR company in Beijing. This PR company indeed wanted to target me, but they might have been a bit careless. They were having a meeting in the hallway outside their office, discussing how to dig up dirt on me. However, there are many companies in that building. Someone from the other company, who happens to be a fan of mine, recorded their meeting, where they were discussing how to gather negative information about me, Wang Jian, and take me down. They sent this recording to me. It turns out that Hongmao medicinal liquor had hired a PR company specifically to target me, because I had affected their interests, right? This is understandable. So, it's not surprising that the departments of traditional Chinese medicine wanted to go after me. Of course, there's also another point, which is that this happened before I was banned. There is another matter, which is the one about the unusual headache. The cause of that incident is particularly funny. It started when the United States cracked a case involving a group of high-ranking officials and wealthy individuals. They didn't get their children into schools like Yale through normal channels. Instead, they paid some money and used a middleman to get their kids into these schools. After this case was cracked, I suddenly realized that these high-ranking officials and dignitaries were mainly Americans, but there were also 2 or 3 Chinese among them. The price difference was particularly striking. These so-called high-ranking American officials and dignitaries spent an average of about $100,000 to get their children into Yale, with the highest being around $200,000. However, the 2 Chinese families spent significantly more, with one spending around $1, $2 million, and the other spending $6.5 million. This number sounds astonishing. The person who spent $6.5 million is Zhao Tao, the chairman of Buchang Pharma. His daughter was attending high school in the UK at the time and later got into Yale. However, he was constantly portraying an image online, saying that his daughter was a good student and finally got into Yale. In reality, he spent $6.5 million to bribe his daughter's way into Yale. when this news reached China, everyone was shocked, right? They said, this Zhao family is so wealthy and they got scammed so badly just to get their daughter into Yale? Generally, the skepticism was focused on this aspect. After seeing this news, I felt that Deiko, Zhao Tao's company, Buchang Nao Xintong, is inherently problematic. This company's main product, Buchang Nao Xintong, if you look up its formula, you'll find that it doesn't actually have a dose-response relationship. It's just a tiny capsule, right? According to traditional Chinese medicine theory, it's just a tiny capsule, ground into powder, and put into what they call, when you take it in capsule form. Think about it. Isn't it true that according to our traditional Chinese medicine theory, the decoction, formed after boiling the ingredients, is what will be effective? When you drink it, he crushed the raw materials, put them into a capsule, and then ingested it. First of all, we don't know if it's effective. Secondly, with such a small amount of so-called traditional Chinese medicine, when you make a decoction, you need a big pot to brew it, right? You drink that, right? But he uses just a few capsules, and claims it's effective when you take them. How is that possible? Moreover, it hasn't undergone any double-blind experiments, right? I expose these things through my articles. And they still sell something called... The cost of the Danhong injection product is only 2.5 yuan, but it is sold at a very high price, in hospitals. 80% of the cost is sales expenses. What are sales expenses? They are the kickbacks given to doctors and hospitals. Because it is a publicly listed company, these numbers are all public, and you can't hide them even if you try. A simple check will reveal everything. So at that time, through this news, it triggered a long-term investigation into companies like this that engage in such practices, the condemnation of this behavior, which is almost criminal. Then, media outlets like DXY and the paper followed up. How many companies nationwide are still producing these traditional Chinese medicine injections? And then, the side effects caused by these companies, how much of the medical insurance funds do they occupy each year, also created a wave of public opinion. So, you can imagine how much these companies hate me. It's understandable. Take Buchang Nao Xintong, for example. This company spends 20 million yuan a day on sales expenses. If they wanted to spend some money to get rid of me, it shouldn't be difficult, right? So, the suspicion that the traditional Chinese medicine department was behind my takedown actually makes a lot of sense. Moreover, the person who provided the feedback at the time described it in great detail, saying that the Traditional Chinese Medicine Association wrote a document to the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration, requesting them to issue a directive to take me down and ban me. After hearing this news, I reached out to my friends. I have a friend who knows someone at the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration. One of my good friends even knows a leader there. He helped me inquire about this matter because he has a decent relationship with that leader. After asking about it, the feedback from that side was, Wang Jian, I know him, right? But, did we issue a document? I don't know, let me check. After 2 days of checking, my friend got back to us and said, oh, we really didn't issue any document, although I know this Wang Jian, right? He usually opposes traditional Chinese medicine, but we can't play along because my friend was saying at the time, if it was really the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration that issued the document, then we could sit down and communicate with him, right? Because, although Jian opposes traditional Chinese medicine, he is actually reasonable. I'm not saying otherwise. Opposing all traditional Chinese medicine, right? Moreover, for the sake of my own career, I can make some compromises. For example, if I can continue doing interviews, then I can refrain from commenting on issues related to traditional Chinese medicine in the future. This is a compromise I can make, because, to be honest, in order to achieve a bigger goal, sometimes we have to make small sacrifices, or even big sacrifices, that are unavoidable. We understand this principle, right? But the feedback from their side was that it wasn't their document. So I told my friend from the second wave, I said, the Traditional Chinese Medicine Administration said it wasn't their document. So you should go ask again. I asked again, and after asking, they responded saying that you all should not worry about this matter. You know, don't ask about it anymore. It's like they just blocked it off. Is this the second feedback? Are there any other possibilities? In the blink of an eye, it was the beginning of the year 2000. At the start of 2000, I went to Japan. Before coming to Japan, I had discussions with a platform in China about whether I could start an audio program. For example, a program similar to an online drama like Pai An. I would record it as audio content behind a paywall. By doing this, I could have some income while I narrated the episodes. On the other hand, we need to see if we can slowly get accepted by the relevant departments, right? This way, I can start doing interviews again. After I arrived in Japan, we began planning this. They said that since I was in Japan, and both the pandemic in Japan and China were escalating, they wanted to do a warm-up for the future broadcast of our program. They suggested that we do a live broadcast, where I would introduce the situation of pandemic prevention in Japan, the measures Japan is taking, whether the public is panicking, and the mortality rate in society, among other questions. I said sure, no problem. They invited 3 people, in total for the entire process: Lao Liang, Liang Hongda, Xu Zheyuan, and me, in 3 live broadcasts. Lao Liang talked about the major plague in Harbin back in the day, and how China fought the epidemic at that time. I chose to talk about how Japan is handling the pandemic. They had prepared all the measures, and even released a financial report, though I can't remember the exact date. They also did some promotion, and asked me to give a speech on Japan's pandemic prevention rather than a live broadcast. I prepared some materials, and then started the live broadcast online. During the live broadcast, as I was talking, I suddenly noticed that all our staff members were gone. I found it very strange, and later I realized that my live broadcast had been stopped. The Cyberspace Administration of China had come in. They said, "This person's live broadcast must be stopped immediately." Not only did it stop, but you know what? All my other platforms that hadn't been taken down yet were all taken down that night. For example, sites like NetEase, Zhihu, and those websites I haven't visited in ages, like Chanliao. All the accounts I registered for giving lectures were completely wiped out. This was truly a complete internet blackout for me. Being completely banned means that all the accounts I registered on various internet platforms within China were wiped out overnight. They were gone, I couldn't log in, and even if I could log in, I couldn't see anything. So at that time, I asked the people from the platform, "What's the reason? I mean, you took down my accounts on those 3 platforms in the first round, but does that mean I can't do anything on other platforms either?" Right. Even on the platforms that weren't taken down, I can't do anything. Are they trying to completely destroy me? Right? I just hope that my friend can go to the Cyberspace Administration of China to ask why. Why did they stop Wang Jian's live broadcast and even want to take it down? What feedback did they provide? They said that Wang Jian has accounts abroad, including on Twitter, for people like this. They take them down without exception. Do you think this is the reason? I don't think it's the real reason. Why? Because there are many people with accounts on Twitter, like Hu Xijin, right? Now, Hu Xijin, he often posts on Sina Weibo, right? Of course, some people say that Hu Xijin is authorized to bypass the Great Firewall, right? Whenever he needs to do some damage control or post information, he bypasses the firewall. Well, what about other people? There are also some people in China who have accounts on Twitter. It's not like having an account on Twitter means it has to be shut down. So I think the third reason given, that my domestic internet platforms were all shut down because I have an account on Twitter, is just an excuse. Besides, I usually have accounts, and they know I post. 2, but why him? While I was doing a live broadcast, it was about to explode. And after it exploded, they said it was because I had a Twitter account. This reason is too far-fetched, right? So personally, I think the real reason isn't actually this. So, to put it bluntly, what exactly is the reason? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure myself. Of course, I might have about an 80 to 90% guess, but if you ask for 100% proof of who exactly orchestrated it, who was behind getting rid of me, I don't actually have very clear evidence. However, one thing is certain. After I was taken down, it had an enormous impact on my personal career. For our profession, especially in the field of interviewing, being around 50 years old is considered the golden period of one's life, because young people doing interviews might not have as much experience. They might not have as much energy and their understanding of life, human nature, and social events might be limited. You might not be able to ask those particularly sharp questions, or especially valuable ones. But by the time we reach around 50 years old, it is precisely the period when we have accumulated enough experience. This time frame is like an outburst, and it should be considered the prime, the best golden age for creation. Then, all of a sudden, it just exploded overnight. It's gone forever. So, later on, I personally thought, since it's been 3 years since my account was banned, I kept thinking about the Cyberspace Administration of China's management of internet accounts. There are a few things I want to say. My camera, for instance, can only record for a maximum of half an hour at a time. Once the time is up, it automatically stops. I wasn't finished talking earlier, and it just stopped. Let's continue our conversation. I still want to share my views on this matter. As someone directly involved, my personal feelings and opinions are based on a few points. First, the Cyberspace Administration's management of internet accounts is extremely arbitrary. They don't have any standards, or at least they don't have any standards that can be made public. They can target anyone they want. Now, when it comes to Sina Weibo accounts, they don't even need to go through Sina Weibo. They can directly operate from the back end. Also, there's no explicit standard. Right? I mean, if you post certain comments, they just block your account without any clear process. This leaves a huge opportunity for rent-seeking. Just think about it. They control the direction of public opinion about a company online. And they even hold the power of life and death over media workers like us, who use the internet as a platform for dissemination. How much power does he have? He can order someone to die, and that person won't be able to live. But then, there is no supervision in this process. So you can imagine, if some companies want to take me, Wang Jian, down, they just need to deal with a section chief at the Cyberspace Administration of China, not even a department head. Why? Because every day, a batch of names for banning is reported to the leaders, and the leaders won't look at them. They don't have the time to look. You know, for example, when June 4th comes around, they ban a batch of people. Submitting a list and there's a Wang Jiren in the middle of it, who would care, right? Don't think I'm exaggerating. You can go to the court judgment website and check it out. Some companies, just to settle this, give money to people from the so-called Cyberspace Administration of China within 3 days. It's all on the National Court Judgment website. Whether it's been taken down now, I don't know. There's a particularly ridiculous example. One company paid 500,000 yuan. In 3 days, it went through multiple layers of peeling and subcontracting. How much money did that person from the Cyberspace Administration of China end up taking? Out of the 200,000 yuan, 480,000 yuan was deducted by the middlemen layer by layer. In other words, those deputy directors at the Cyberspace Administration of China didn't have as big of an appetite as we might have imagined, at least back then. I don't know about now. Just think about it, if they wanted to deal with me. It would have been so easy, right? So personally, that's my first impression. My second impression is, in theory, there should be specific channels for this administrative penalty. If you block my account, I should be able to file for a reconsideration, right? If the administrative reconsideration is not possible, I should be able to file a lawsuit, right? But when it comes to the account, there's no chance. First, if you go to file a lawsuit, the court won't accept it. After my WeChat official account was banned, there was a message in the back end stating that, according to relevant laws and regulations, it was permanently banned. But when you look up that law, it's a very vague, so-called general clause. When you compare it, you can't figure out where you broke the law. Then you go to court, you file a lawsuit, and the court doesn't accept it. If the court could accept it, we could directly ask the Cyberspace Administration of China which specific statement of mine violated the law and why they shut down my account, right? The court would have a ruling process, and in the end, if the court ruled that Wang Jian's statements didn't violate the law, they would restore my account. But since the court doesn't accept this case, there's absolutely no way to seek redress. The third thing I want to say is about these big shots, right? Actually, we ordinary people. Well then, although I can be considered a public figure, in their eyes I'm just an ordinary person. Whether it's your career, your professional works, or your future development, they don't care at all. He wants you to die, just because of a single sentence, in the middle of an A4 paper, and you would die. Cruel, isn't it? That's just how cruel it is. So, you ask why my accounts were banned. Many people have asked me the reason. For 3 years I haven't talked about why. Knowing that talking about it won't help means that after talking I could still offend them, right? If they could control Twitter, they would probably blow up my Twitter account. Right. Maybe they contacted Elon Musk and said, "Did you shut down Wang Xian's account?" But whether Musk listens to them or not, I have no idea. It's really sad when you think about it. I mean, just think about how good our program was back then, right? It was developing so well. And then suddenly, there was an order. My entire career was over. I've been thinking, in a while I'm going to buy a car in Japan. After buying the car, it's very easy to apply for a license plate here. You can easily apply for all kinds of licenses. I had already decided on the number for my car. I want it to say June 4th. Because this day marks my social death on the Chinese internet. I will always remember this date. Thank you all for watching, and we'll continue our discussion next time.